A forgotten artifact lies in pieces on a planet far from Earth. Few know it exists except those who took it back and those whose ancestors created it. 4 young people are thrown into a race against emissaries of the gods to find its pieces. Mistrust, greed, and magic are tangled in an endless web. What will the fate be of the universe once it is found and reassembled? Get Scepter of the Gods, The Rod of Truth now on Amazon, and get wrapped up in the saga that will not let you go.
Good morning and welcome to the Motivational Devotional, where we are merging motivation and spirituality to create a daily dose of confident positivity. I hope that this morning's podcast will help you to be more spiritually and positively motivated so that you can transform your day. This is a special episode in a series of podcasts based on Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. For several years now, I have gone back to the habits taught in this book to prepare for the coming year and home in closer and closer to my lifelong dream and my goals so that I could more effectively achieve my goals. Year after year, we hear people joking about setting New Year's resolutions and then abandoning them by February. Personally, I don't find that very funny. I hope that your resolutions are more important to you than to give them up after only a month or two. What if you were to set 1, 2, maybe 3 at the most resolutions or goals for 2024, and then at the end of 2024, find that you nailed each one of them? You can. I set 2 goals that to me were very large. As I talk about in the Motivational Devotional, I had to change and grow to become more than I was in order to achieve those goals. As I say this now, I have done that. I changed. I grew. I achieved. Starting with the November 27, 2023 podcast and running through the New Year's Eve podcast, this series offers 35 episodes of principles, inspiration, and motivation that I use toward fulfilling my own lifelong dream. I have audacious goals for 2024, but only 3, because more than that will water down your efforts. I will achieve mine by this time next year. You can do the same. And I hope you will pursue yours with relentless intent. If you find these helpful, please go to the Motivational Devotional Facebook page and let me know. For now, let's get on with it. How do you understand your role in creation? Maybe we need to back up. I wonder how many people understand that we actually have a role in creation. That doesn't mean to be just wandering around on the planet telling ourselves that we're all part of creation, man, like we're all interconnected. We are. But that's not the end of it. The very first sentences in the Bible are the creation stories. Yes, I did put an S on the end of that because there are 2 separate versions of creation at the beginning of the Bible. The first is the 7-day thing we usually hear, where in the beginning everything was basically nothing and God separated everything into light and darkness, morning and evening. Then on day 2, separated the planet from the sky. The whole planet was just water. Then on day 3, dry ground appeared for the first time, along with all the plants and vegetation. Day 4, the sun, the moon, and the stars. Then day 5, water creatures and birds. Day 6, all the animals on the land, including humans, male and female, with no mention of names. And then on day 7, God rested. So then in the 2nd chapter of Genesis, there is just dry land. And then God has water come up from under the ground. And God forms man from the ground. And then it says that God had already planted a garden and so put the man there. And then God had all kinds of trees spring up along with the tree of knowledge of good and evil and the tree of life in that garden. Then it talks about a river flowing through the land divided into 4 headwaters. And so God stuck the man into the Garden of Eden to work the garden. Then that's when he gets the commandment to eat from any tree in the garden except the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and is told that if he did, he would surely die. But then, after all that, is when God decides to make a companion for the man, and so he decides to create a suitable helper. But it says that God had already formed from the ground all the wild animals and birds of the sky, and so brought them all to the man for the man to name them, which he does. And God hoped one of those would be the suitable companion, which it wasn't. And so that's when God puts the man to sleep, takes out a rib, and uses it to create a woman, and then brings her to the man, and they both live in the garden together. So, yes, These are two rather different accounts of how creation happened, and both seem to have their teaching points for the ancient Hebrews for life lessons and who we are to the Creator. But as for an actual historical account of how everything was created, it really doesn't say. In the first of these stories, the humans don't participate much in the creation process, but in the second story, at least the man is naming all the creatures and is invited into the process some. One of the lessons anyone can gain from this, regardless of what religious tradition you follow, is that humans have sought to know how things in creation came to be. There are other creation accounts that come from other geographical points on the planet, even among Native American tribes, the First Nations people of Australia, ancient China and India, and Northern Europe, and other ancient mythologies. With all this interest in trying to figure out how creation was done way back then, we easily miss a little piece in that first creation story in the Bible where it says that humans were created male and female, created in our image, which is odd for God to be referred to as plural, but it does say that God created mankind in his own image. Does that mean that God is supposed to look like us, or is there something else meant by this? Well, without continuing to hash out a Bible study lesson here, I go through all that to talk about how creation happens and how we participate in it. And yes, I do mean that we participate in all of creation. None of us is in a position to sit back in a captain's chair and point here and there for the rest of everyone in all of creation to follow the orders that we bark out. But we also aren't little automatons zipping around like worker bees, carrying out mindless little activities that are part of creation. We are somewhere in between that, in the middle, as co-creators. If we are truly created in a likeness or image or essence of the creative power of the universe, then we also have power and we also have authority and we also have a responsibility to execute what we are created to be. When I say every day that all of creation is conspiring in your favor, I don't mean that it's being done to you. I mean that it's being done with you, in that you and I are co-conspirators in that conspiracy for that favor. But creation only moves in our favor when we are also executing relentless intent toward the dream that is inspired in us by the universe. So, because of who we are and what we are, we need to not wait for anything to be done for us. We need to take charge of our dreams, take charge of our goals, and get it done. That's not to say we say, okay, God, thanks, but I got it from here. Trust me, that works out very poorly. I tried that a few decades ago, and it creates separation between the individual and the universe, and it isolates a person from the process of creation. I would encourage anyone to look at any of the world's creation stories and realize that creation never stopped. Not on day 7, and not 7 million years later. Creation happens every moment of every day right now. We can take the role of bystander and let creation happen all around us if we so choose, but then we are denying our birthright. If we want to live effective, productive, happy, rewarding lives, we need to move from being bystanders into an active role in the process of creation. For example, we won't be creating trees, but we can plant them. Stephen Covey wrote that all things are created twice. The scripture from Genesis 1, saying that mankind has dominion over the earth, suggests that there has always been divine intent for us to be involved in creation. Everything that God created in those stories began by God saying, "Let us," meaning that first God had a divine idea, and then there was action to carry out that idea. Everything that mankind has created has begun with an idea. That idea is the first creation. Inventions, community initiatives, spiritual practices, and the culture of an organization all begin with an idea. People have meetings, somebody draws up plans, that idea gets firmed up. With us individually, like with our New Year's resolutions or goals that drive toward a lifelong dream, we already have the idea, but we need to write that idea down for it to be a real idea. If we want to see any of that become reality, we have to take charge of that first creation. Then we will carry out the idea, make it real, pursue it with relentless intent, and grind and work to make the second creation happen as co-creators with the universe. What do you want to see created? What do you want to change? What is your lifelong dream, and what are your life-changing goals? Take those ideas and take charge as a co-creator with God, because all of creation really is conspiring in your favor. Trust that the universe always has your back. Stephen Covey said, "Take charge of the first creation, or someone or something else will. Then you're not really living. You're being lived." Thank you for taking the time to listen today. Please help keep this podcast going by following the Motivational Devotional Facebook page, following @Threefold Way Radio on Twitter, and sharing the written format of today's message from motivational-devotional.com on your social media. I am deeply grateful for your support, and thank you for letting Motivational Devotional be part of your journey. Peace out. See you tomorrow. Motivational Devotional is a production of Threefold Way Radio, LLC.